Hello, and welcome to the Night Sky Reader. I'm here with a story to help you relax, meditate, or gently drift to sleep. Tonight, the Red Light Notebook. Settle in, close your eyes if you'd like, and let's begin. The meteor itself is already gone by the time you get the blanket flat on the grass. What stays is the stranger part, a pale meteor train suspended in the night sky above the field, as if someone drew one clean white mark overhead, and then stepped away while the air slowly reconsidered it. You feel for the notebook by your knee almost before you are fully settled. The red flashlight is clipped to the cover. The thermos is still warm against your ankle. Above you, the persistent train hangs where the flash had been, narrow at first glance but not really narrow anymore. Even in these first seconds, it is becoming something softer than a line. You came out for quiet stargazing, for the simple pleasure of naming a few constellations and making a few notes in the dark. The notebook is small enough to fit in one hand, with pages that take ink without much shine. You switch on the red light and the paper blooms dimly, brick red and private, bright enough to write by and still kind to your night vision. The page waits in that calm artificial dusk while the sky keeps changing in its own older time. Your first line is plain, almost businesslike. Time, direction, thin white train high above the southern edge of the field. You pause with the pen tip on the paper. The train is still there when you look up again, but the phrase thin white train already feels late. It has widened, not by much, only enough to trouble the sentence. The middle portion no longer looks like a ruled stroke. It looks brushed. It looks touched by a hand too large and too gentle to see. The blanket under you has a low woolly nap that catches on your fingertips. Dry grass presses through in places. A faint smell of earth comes up where the day's warmth has gone out of the soil, and when you uncap the thermos for a sip, a little steam carries tea and metal and the ghost of ginger. Insects keep to a patient, even rhythm in the weeds along the field's edge. Far off, beyond the dark line of trees and a few unlit houses, a road makes a soft, continuous hush. None of it asks for attention the way the meteor train does, but all of it keeps you here in your body while you watch. Some bright meteors leave more than a flash. Their streak can become a persistent train, a luminous trail high in the upper atmosphere that lingers after the stone itself has burned past. You do not think this in the tone of a lesson. You think it because the fact and the sight fit neatly together overhead. What remains is not the meteor now. What remains is the air altered for a while, glowing where something swift moved through it. You write another line, slower this time, wider than at first sight, slightly feathered on the western end. The red light makes your handwriting look gentler than it usually does, as if the page itself were asking for quiet. When you lift your head again, the western end you just described has thinned, and the brighter portion is near the center now, where the train seems to bow a little. It is not dramatic. It is simply undeniable. A thing can change a great deal while you are writing one calm sentence about it. So you write less and look longer. The pen rests across the notebook's crease. The flashlight lies in your palm, aimed down, red circle dim on the page. Above, the meteor train is no longer trying to resemble the straight streak that made it. It is becoming weather. One edge softens into threads. The other stays cleaner for a moment, then loosens too. The whole pale shape bends as if upper winds are taking hold of it at different heights, pulling one layer east, another slightly north, creating a slow twist that the eye can follow if it does not hurry. That twist is the part that keeps you from looking away. A line would have been easy, even a ribbon would be easy enough, but this changing band in the night sky is harder to summarize because it has no single direction now. It fattens near the middle, thins at one end, curls almost imperceptibly at the other. It looks less like an object than like a process made visible. The longer-lived thing, you realize, is harder to describe than the meteor that lasted less than a second. A flash can be named. A fading shape keeps asking for new language. The field does not participate. It remains dark and level. The horizon stays low. A fence post to your left is only a darker stroke against the darker grass. The thermos lid, turned into a cup, sits near your boot with a small crescent of reflected starlight on its rim. When you draw the blanket higher over your stomach, the fabric makes a brief brushing sound and goes still. All the movement is overhead, patient and unhurried, the kind that rewards a steady gaze. You try for a more careful note because the meteor train seems to deserve one. The train bows slightly, you write, central section broader and more diffuse, as if the white has been stirred into the dark. You stop there, look up, and find that stirred is already wrong in its own quiet way. The center has developed a small inward pinch, not a break, only a narrowing, like a ribbon drawn softly between two fingers. The lower edge is rougher than it was. The upper edge is nearly smooth. The phrase on the page belongs to a sky from half a minute ago. You add a few words below it. High-altitude winds reshaping luminous trail. That is true enough. It is also incomplete in the way facts sometimes are when they arrive in the presence of the thing itself. The truth overhead is not only that the upper air is moving, it is that the movement is visible in this particular pale band, visible in a curve here, a fray there, a widening that seems gentle until you compare it with your memory of the first sharp line. The notebook holds statements. The sky keeps offering revisions. There is a small pleasure in that, once you stop treating it as failure. You can feel the habit still working in you, the mild wish to pin the train down with the correct phrase, to have one record that would later prove you saw it clearly. But each time you lower your eyes to the page, you leave the meteor train alone with its own changes. Each time you look back up, it has moved farther from the sentence than the sentence can travel. Accuracy becomes a kind of narrowing. Watching becomes wider. The red light warms the edges of your fingertips. Ink shines wet for a second, then dulls. You begin another line with more room around the words, as if space on the page might help. Pale train widening to the east, center softening as if your pen stops there. Not because you cannot think of a comparison. Too many come at once and none stay. Breath on glass, wool teased apart, milk in water, fine cloud caught in moonlight, though there is no moon here to lend itself. Before any one of them settles, the shape overhead alters again. The eastward portion lifts slightly. The central softness thins into two faint layers, one brighter than the other. The sentence on the page remains open, the words as if hanging on their own small persistent train, not arriving anywhere. You do not finish it. For a moment the notebook stays open under the red wash, the unfinished line waiting without complaint. Then you place the pen across the gutter, cap it, and let your hand rest on the cover. Nothing solemn happens. No vow, no revelation. The decision is smaller and better than that. You set the flashlight beside the notebook, still on but turned away, and settle more fully onto your back. The blanket takes your weight. The tea is warm when you sip it. The train above you continues widening as if your choice has freed nothing but your own neck and shoulders. Without the interruption of note-taking, the meteor train changes in a more continuous way. It is fainter now, not disappearing all at once but spreading beyond its own first boundaries. The bright white has become softer, with a hint of gray at the edges where the eye grows less certain. The twist that once seemed obvious is subtler now, and more interesting, because it is everywhere. What had looked like one band is really several delicate densities sliding against each other, growing diffuse, losing themselves slowly into the dark surrounding them. The stars nearby come and go in relation to the train, not because they move quickly, but because the pale haze above them changes how plainly they show. A small star near the train's lower edge dims, returns, dims again as the luminous band drifts across that patch of sky. The effect is gentle, almost shy. You find yourself following the edges less, and the whole presence more. The train is no longer something to trace. It is an area of altered darkness, a lightness laid over the night sky, and slowly thinned by height and wind. Your breathing has become easier to notice. Not slower because you have tried to make it slower, only more apparent now that the pen is closed and the page is not asking anything from your hand. Cool air moves over your cheeks and the bridge of your nose. The tea leaves a little heat in your throat. Somewhere near your elbow, a beetle works through the grass with a dry ticking sound, then stops. The road far off is only a hush now, intermittent and very low. Above all of it, the meteor train keeps doing the quietest possible form of changing, and because it is gradual, you do not miss it. Gradual change is kind that way. A line broadens. A broadening thins. A bright edge loses its certainty. Nothing is withheld, nothing announced. The night does not build toward an ending. It eases toward one, and you find you are content to ease with it. Now the train resembles less a mark than a memory of one. Only the central section remains plainly separate from the surrounding sky. The ends have gone gauzy, so light they could be mistaken for a faint patch of high cloud if you had not watched them come from the same bright origin. Even the center, once fuller, now seems porous. Stars begin to show through it more cleanly. The upper atmosphere has been writing in slow cursive over the original stroke, then lifting the page away. You reach once for the notebook, but only to close it properly before dew can find the paper. The unfinished line stays where it is. You do not read it back. The red flashlight clicks off, and with that small practical gesture the field grows wider. Your eyes adjust another step. The stars become finer and steadier. The meteor train is still present, but only because you know where to look and have kept faith with its thinning. A person arriving now might miss it entirely. You do not mind that. The train was never a possession. It was only a visible interval. The thermos is lighter. The blanket has gathered a little night damp on the outer fold, cool against the back of your hand. Grass smells greener now, and the soil underneath it darker, as if scent also settles after midnight. You stay where you are. The place is ordinary in the best way. An open patch under a clear sky, enough room to look up without obstruction. The meteor train gives back, minute by minute, what it borrowed from darkness. The night resumes its usual texture. No seam remains where the bright streak first appeared. Soon there is only a suspicion of unevenness where the train had been. Then not even that. You look carefully once, then more softly, and the result is the same. It has gone diffuse enough to lose its name. The stars remain, smaller and steadier than the vanished ribbon, going about their long visible stillness without concern for what briefly crossed among them. Your notebook rests by your side. The pen is clipped shut. The page with its unfinished sentence is inside, untroubled, and you do not need anything more from it. The field is the field again, though of course it never stopped being that. The blanket under you is a little rough. The thermos holds a last swallow of warmth. Insects continue their modest work in the grass. The road hush comes and goes. Overhead, the ordinary night sky has room for all of it. The bright thing that passed, the persistent train that widened and twisted, the dark that took it back, and your own quiet body lying beneath, no longer trying to keep pace with change by writing it down. You came prepared to notice. That was good. You were ready with the red light notebook, the practical tools, the careful eye. Nothing has been solved, nothing concluded. A meteor train appeared, lingered, drifted in high-altitude winds, and faded until it was ordinary darkness again. You were here for it. That is all. The red flashlight stays off. The pen stays closed. The notebook lies still beside the thermos on the blanket, both of them touched by starlight too faint to read by. Above you there are only the regular stars now, patient and quiet, and below them the dark field holding its own soft shape. It passed and left calm behind it, the kind that makes the body heavier in a good way, the mind less interested in finishing every line. If sleep comes, or meditation, or simply a deeper level of rest, it comes under this unchanged sky, where one white mark widened, loosened, and finally disappeared without asking to be anything more. Thank you for spending this time with the Night Sky Reader. May your night be peaceful. Until next time, rest well.